In a cramped, leaking apartment at the edge of the city, a woman lay on a thin mattress and stared at the ceiling as another baby cried beside her. This was not the first cry she had heard, and it would not be the last. She had given birth to 12 girls, 12 mouths, 12 fragile lives, and not a single plan. She was not rich, she was not even comfortable. She and her husband were far below average, drowning slowly in poverty. Yet they kept bringing children into a world they could barely survive in themselves. All because of one stupid, rubbish dream, to give her husband a male child. That foolish obsession controlled her life. Each pregnancy came with hope, and each birth came with disappointment, followed by another reckless attempt. Debt piled up, rent was unpaid, food became a luxury. The woman still smiled proudly, arrogant in her belief that one day a boy would arrive and fix everything. At this point, pause for a moment. If this is your first time on this channel, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. London, California, Jamaica, Trinidad, New York, Florida, Atlanta, Nigeria, or South Africa. We truly want to know. We also give special appreciation to the first 3 people who comment, so be fast and let your voice be seen as this story unfolds. Today's shout-out goes to Priscilla Kese from Ghana, Oleatan Jenfa from Brazil, and Dinah Seguai from South Africa. You are all welcomed. Back to the story. As the years passed, hunger became a daily visitor. The mother borrowed money carelessly, lying and begging, stacking debt on debt like it had no consequences. She was greedy, foolish, and blind. Her daughters wore torn clothes while she dreamed of baby names for a son that never came. Eventually, the debtors arrived, cold men with hard eyes. Some of the girls were taken away as payment, treated like objects, not children. Others wandered into suffering, abuse, and illegal paths far too early. The family collapsed under the weight of her stupidity. Still, she refused to accept blame. In her heart, she believed the problem was fate, not her own reckless choices. But fate was only getting started. When the debtors returned, they did not knock politely. They kicked the door open like men who already owned everything inside. The mother screamed, cried, rolled on the floor, but her tears meant nothing. Hunger had already weakened the girls, their eyes sunken, their bones sharp under their skin. The foolish woman had borrowed from everyone, neighbors, shop owners, loan sharks, even people who warned her to stop giving birth like a mad animal. Now they came to collect. 2 of the older girls were dragged away that same day. One was barely 10, the other was 12. The mother clung to their legs, begging, but those hands had once carried money instead of wisdom. The men pushed her aside like rubbish. Her husband stood there, silent, useless, staring at the wall. The children screamed until their voices cracked. That was the last time those girls slept under the same roof. After that day, the house became emptier and darker. The remaining girls learned quickly that childhood was over. Some were sent out to hawk goods on dangerous streets. Some were pushed into shameful labor nobody should ever speak of proudly. One disappeared and never returned. The mother pretended not to know what her daughters were doing to survive, yet she ate whatever little food they brought home. Greedy, arrogant, shameless woman. She cursed her daughters for being girls as if they chose their gender. Every night she still prayed for a son, still believed another pregnancy would save her. Stupid thinking, wrapped in false hope. One of the younger girls fell sick from exhaustion and hunger. There was no money for medicine. She died quietly on a dirty mattress while her sisters watched. The mother screamed after, blaming spirits, blaming enemies, blaming everyone except herself. The house now smelled of death and regret. Yet even then, she whispered that maybe the next child would be a boy. Her foolishness was not just painful, it was deadly. After the first death, fear settled permanently in the house. The girls no longer laughed or played. They moved like tired old women trapped in young bodies. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, some of them left the house barefoot, carrying heavy loads meant for adults. They walked, begged, and suffered just to bring back something small to eat. At ages where they should have been learning and dreaming, They were already fighting life like warriors without weapons. The mother watched them leave each day without guilt. She complained instead. She said the food was not enough. She said they should try harder. That woman was truly foolish and wicked, a greedy soul wrapped in the skin of a mother. She had no skills, no plan, no sense, yet her mouth was always open to eat what her children suffered to get. One of the girls, the mother's favorite, tried to be strong. She carried the weight of everyone on her small shoulders. She skipped meals so her younger sisters could eat. She worked longer hours, endured insults from strangers, and swallowed her pain silently. The stress slowly destroyed her. Her body grew thin, her eyes lost their light. One evening, she collapsed on the roadside and never stood up again. By the time her sisters found her, her spirit was gone. When the news reached the house, the mother wailed louder than ever before, but her crying sounded empty. People whispered that her stupidity had finally taken its crown. Losing her favorite child broke something inside her, yet not enough to bring wisdom. She beat her chest, calling herself unlucky, refusing to admit her greed caused all this. The husband drifted away, ashamed and broken, leaving the remaining girls alone with a woman who had already destroyed too much. Death had now tasted their home twice, and it was not satisfied yet. With their father gone, the house became a prison ruled by hunger and bitterness. The remaining girls learned that they were alone in the world. Their mother changed, not into someone wiser, but into something harder and colder. She shouted more, insulted them daily, and blamed them for everything. She called them useless because they were not boys. Such a stupid, arrogant, and foolish woman, cursing the very children keeping her alive. Some of the girls were no longer living at home. One stayed with a distant relative who treated her like a servant. Another moved between streets and shelters, surviving day by day. Those still in the house shared one thin meal and slept on the floor, listening to their mother complain about her bad luck instead of her bad choices. The youngest girls suffered the most. They walked under the sun, washing clothes, carrying loads, and doing chores for strangers just to earn coins. They returned home exhausted, only to be shouted at for not drinking enough. The mother still talked about giving birth again, still dreaming of a son, as if her body and soul had learned nothing. People in the community mocked her openly. They called her foolish, greedy, and senseless. Some said she was cursed, but the truth was simpler. She cursed herself with reckless decisions. Another girl fell sick, coughing through the night. There was no care, no medicine, no comfort. She survived, but her body never fully recovered. The house no longer felt like a family home. It was a place where hope went to die slowly. The girls looked at their mother not with love, but with quiet resentment. They had entered the world through her, yet she had given them nothing but suffering. And deep inside, even she began to feel the weight of her sins pressing on her chest. By the time the fifth tragedy crept into their lives, the girls no longer cried loudly. Pain had become normal. Hunger was no longer an enemy, it was a companion that followed them everywhere. The mother grew thinner, not from sacrifice, but from stress and fear. Creditors still came around, laughing at her downfall. Neighbors avoided her, whispering that she was an idiot who destroyed her own bloodline with foolish pride. One of the girls, barely a teenager, was forced to work for a woman who beat her daily and paid her almost nothing. Another vanished completely after following a stranger who promised food and safety. No one ever saw her again. The mother pretended to hope, but deep inside she knew. Her stupidity had swallowed another child. Still, her mouth spoke nonsense. She blamed destiny, witches, even the girls themselves. A truly rubbish excuse from a rubbish mindset. The remaining daughters slowly changed. Love for their mother dried up and turned into quiet hatred. They saw clearly now. This woman was greedy, arrogant, and foolish. She never thought of school, skills, or savings. All she cared about was producing a male child to satisfy her husband's ego,
even when that husband had already abandoned them. One night, during a heated argument over food, one of the girls finally spoke the truth. She told her mother that she never should have given birth to them if she had no plan. The words hit harder than any slap. The mother raised her hand but stopped halfway. For the first time, she saw her reflection in her daughter's eyes, a broken, selfish woman surrounded by the ruins she created. That night, she could not sleep. Memories of lost children haunted her. Faces, voices, empty spaces. Her body shook with fear. Death had taken many, but guilt had started eating her alive. The house was silent, but the weight of her foolishness screamed louder than hunger.
The mother began to fall sick, not with one clear illness, but with many small pains that joined together. Her chest burned at night. Her head span in the morning. Her body weakened the same way her family once did. The girls noticed, but none rushed to her side. Love had dried up completely. They cooked when they could, not out of care, but because if she died, everything would become even harder. At night, the foolish woman cried quietly. She remembered each pregnancy, each foolish hope for a male child, each arrogant decision to borrow money instead of stopping. Now she saw it clearly. She had been stupid, truly stupid, greedy and blind. She had used her womb like a gambling tool, betting lives she could not afford to lose. But realization came too late. Regret does not bring back dead children. One evening, as rain poured through the leaking roof, she called the remaining girls together. Her voice was weak. She apologized, but the words sounded empty, like spoiled food. One of the girls asked her a simple question. If we all die, will you still be proud you tried to get a boy? The question pierced her heart. She tried to speak but choked on her own breath. That night, she collapsed. The girls carried her to a clinic, but there was no money for treatment. She survived, but something inside her broke completely. She no longer spoke about a son. She no longer planned another pregnancy. She just lay there, staring at nothing, surrounded by daughters she had already damaged beyond repair. Outside, life continued. Inside that house, only regret lived. The girls now understood a painful truth. Being born does not mean being wanted properly. And having a mother does not always mean having protection. The final lesson was approaching, and it would be cruel. The end did not come with noise or drama. It came quietly, like hunger always did. One morning, the mother did not wake up. Her body lay still on the same thin mattress where many of her children had suffered and died. There was no money for a proper burial, no husband, no relatives rushing in with sympathy. Only a few exhausted daughters standing over her, feeling nothing but emptiness. They did not cry the way children cry for a loving parent. They cried for the life they never had, for stolen childhoods, for sisters lost to death, debt, and darkness. The community whispered again, shaking their heads, calling her foolish, greedy, stupid, and arrogant even in death. And sadly, they were right. She brought 12 lives into the world with no plan, no wisdom, and no responsibility. Her obsession with a male child destroyed everything. In the end, she got nothing. No son, no respect, no peace. The remaining girls scattered with time. Some struggled but survived. Some carried trauma that would never heal. They learned early that life is cruel when parents are careless. They promised themselves they would never repeat such foolishness. Before we close this story, if you followed us to this point, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. London, California, Jamaica, Trinidad, New York, Florida, Atlanta, Nigeria, or South Africa. We truly love seeing your comments, and we give special appreciation to the first 3 people who comment. Your support keeps these stories alive. Moral lesson: giving birth is not an achievement.
Raising children responsibly is. Poverty mixed with greed, pride, and foolish decisions destroys lives. Children are not tools to satisfy ego or cultural pressure. If you are not prepared to plan, protect, and provide, then bringing life into the world becomes cruelty, not motherhood.